This is going to get dark, because we are now in the true depths of the Hunter x Hunter iceberg. Hunter x Hunter is notably not always a bright and wacky fun series, and Togashi often allows it to drift into a bit of a disturbing abyss, a lot of which you may not even pick up on. There is some very subtle and very shockingly depressing stuff in Hunter x Hunter, and after I've pointed it out, you won't be able to unsee it. Before we get to that though, first up, as promised at the end of our previous video, there is a second hidden Nen language in this world, known only as the Divine Script. An incredibly remarkable and game-changing augmentation of Nen utilized by a completely unremarkable character, which is the pirate boxer on Greed Island. Within his ring was the Divine Script, which functions sort of like Nen inscription, except rather than being programmed for a specific purpose, it gives off more of a general Nen buff. Sasuke recognizes this script in the series, and he remarks that the pirate boxer may as well be advertising just how weak he is, implying that the boxer is only making use of the Divine Script in order to compensate for his complete and utter lack of substance. But this is a straight up Nen buff, and it makes me wonder why no one else is using it. But then I realized someone else is using it. The Divine Script was actually introduced during York New City through Delon, whose sword is covered in the Nen enhancing writing. And then he tries to stab Uvagin, but the blade just snaps. So a pretty pathetic showing from the Divine Script there, and the 1999 anime agreed. Which is why in the 1999 version they make a big deal about Delon's Divine Script by giving him a powersome yellow aura, and the sword is actually capable of piercing Uvagin somewhat. Not totally, but it gets in there. But then because the sword is still intact, later on the Phantom Troop then use it to kill Delon in the same episode, which is a change that I'm not entirely sure why was made. In the manga he dies because Finks, rather rudely I might add, sticks his whole arm through his chest, which yes is a bit brutal, but the 1999 anime is much more well known for embracing that sphere of darkness. But I guess that in summation, the Divine Script is kind of like the poor man's version of Nen inscription. A slight buff utilized by lower level Nen users over there and in the poor corner that basically gives away their complete lack of ability to more veteran users. But having brought up the 1999 version, this would not be an Iceberg video if we didn't address an awkward bath scene. I don't understand, but for whatever reason they could not get enough of non-canon baths and showers. This went so far that they started changing the setting of actual scenes in the manga to put them in a shower when they were not previously in a shower. In this case, Uvagin goes on a bit of a rampage trying to find Kurapika and ends up questioning and killing this dude in his underwear, but for whatever reason in the 1999 version they have the scene take place within a shower, implying that Uvagin just intruded on this dude who is for some reason showering in his underwear, and I guess that's just how this interrogation is going to be. Quite perplexing, but then again Togashi also has his fair share of oddities in the main series as well. Because did you know that Hina's hat is actually alive? Who's Hina, you ask? And that's a good question. Hina is the Chimera ant best known for getting pregante with a Nen curse, but then it went away once Chitu's skull was crushed by Silver Zoldyck. She's a Nen exorcist and one of the few surviving Chimera ants, but with a very strange quirk, which is her living hat. If you pay special attention to Hina's cap, you'll notice that it actually mimics Hina's expressions. So if she's concerned, then the hat is concerned. And if Hina is happy, then the hat is happy. And so on and so forth for all of the other emotions. I mean, I can't remember them all off the top of my head because it's just been a while since I felt anything. But what I do remember is what was on the top of Hina's head, because this hat is almost certainly a use of Nen. Hina, being a specialist, does have access to weird abstract powers. It could be a Nen beast, or it could even be Hina herself, perpetually manipulating the nature of clothing. You know, come to think of it, where did the Chimera ants even get their clothes? Like, there was a koala dressed in a full suit, and I suppose as time goes on, they just sort of hatch with clothes on already, or at least that's what Pito did. So maybe all of their clothing is alive. And I'm not done with this royal commission into Hunter x Hunter fashion just yet, because Best Boy Killua also has a lot of questions to answer regarding his pants. To be perfectly straightforward, they are impossible. After a certain point in the series, Killua starts casually wandering around with two yo-yos, each weighing 50 kilograms each. That's about 110 pound units for the like 3 countries in the world that don't use the metric system. You should get on that. But either way, it's a lot of weight. Much more than your average human can just casually wander around with, and certainly more than your average pants can support. Killua's pants are so powerful that they can house at least 100 kilograms of weight, which I imagine is only possible due to some sort of secret Zoldyck fabric production. Like maybe they get their clothes specially made by some sort of Nen seamstress. But the issue with that is that Killua is a boy who enjoys his fashion, and he definitely doesn't go home to get special Zoldyck clothing every time he changes, or any of the times. So somehow he keeps finding new pants capable of harnessing these yo-yos, meaning that it's more likely that there is some sort of effect applied to the yo-yos that reduce the impact of their weight. But even more likely than that is that Togashi just doesn't care, and implemented this without considering the true integrity of Killua's pants. Now just on the Zoldycks, here's a question. What is the difference between an assassin and a serial killer? The answer is that one is a profession and one is a hobby. And a super obscure hobbyist in the world of Hunter was a man by the name of Benny Delon. He's a renowned serial killer who lived about 100 years before modern day Hunter x Hunter, who combined his skill as a blacksmith with his hobby of brutally murdering people. And you may not remember this character at all, but we know a pretty shocking amount about his history, including the fact that he was a cult leader, as well as that the historical classification of his murders can be defined into 3 artistic periods, and even a direct quote from Benny himself, who allegedly said, "Each of my victims' screams and facial expressions inspired my work." Because basically what he would do is he would kill someone and then he would craft a blade in response to the feeling he got. That was his art. The blades represent the feeling he had from killing the person, or the feeling the person had from the killing. Don't want to know. But what I do know is that Benny Delon actually forms a pivotal part of the Orc New City arc. Because when Chrollo fights against both Xeno and Silver Zoldyck, he uses a Benny Delon knife, which Silver immediately recognizes and is even able to correctly place what artistic period it falls into, like the true death connoisseur he is. In fact, that's why Silver was able to survive this encounter at all, because he instantly knew the knife was toxic and exactly how to deal with it. And it's stuff like that that really grips me with Hunter x Hunter. This almost unnecessary detail that builds the characters in such wonderfully deep ways. Chrollo has this knife because he is a skilled killer, and Silver recognizes the knife because killing is his profession. It's like 2 contemporary artists meeting to discuss their work. But also Gon and Killua find a completely different Benny Delon knife several chapters earlier, which Killua recognizes because of course he has also studied the art of death just like his father. However, Gon is the one who noticed that the knife was emanating aura, meaning that Benny Delon was a Nen user, and quite the sinister one at that. And these knives are very potentially conjured objects. But Benny isn't the only historical figure who knew Nen, and I think you'll probably have heard of this next one. Because did you know that Jesus Christ was a Nen user? Stick with me here, because Christianity is confirmed to exist in the Hunter x Hunter world due to chapter 74, where Chrollo mentions both Jesus and Judas by name. And if Jesus did in fact exist in this world, then the only logical conclusion is that he was a Nen user. A very powersome Nen user, because all of his miracles can be explained through aura. Like the story of passing around the infinite fish and the bread, that's just Jesus conjuring food. And even coming back from the dead is an invocation of post-mortem Nen, because if Hisoka can do it, then so can a theoretical fictional Jesus. And Togashi does often like to include elements of reality into the fiction of Hunter x Hunter. However, I will say that when he does that, it's often used in very dark ways, which is a device that I call Togashi's realism. Because Hunter x Hunter aesthetically is a flat series. Even before Togashi's health problems, it is characterized by a plain and simple design when it comes to characters, with faces often featuring little to no shading. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that's his style, which makes it incredibly shocking when you turn the page and see something like this. In chapter 90, there is a panel that haunts me to this day, because out of nowhere we cut to this shot of 4 photorealistically drawn children sitting against a wall. And in the very next shot, we are back to reality, or the fictional reality, as Nobunaga and Machi walk right past them, with Killua monitoring from afar. But why did we have this panel to begin with, and why was it drawn so damn realistically? I mean, it's undeniably impactful. It smacks you right in the balls and says, hey, pay attention to me. And not at all surprisingly, both anime versions did elect not even to bother attempting what Togashi did here. In the 1999 version, we get an out-of-focus shot of the kids in the dark, completely devoid of facial features, almost in stark opposition to what Togashi put into the manga. And then in 2011, the kids get cut almost completely, with all that remains of them being this one shot of legs and a backpack. But in the manga, it remains one haunting moment of realism. I suppose, like a lot of art, what you're meant to take from this panel is very much up to your own personal interpretation. But there are other examples of Togashi realism that are, how shall we say, less open for debate. And these take the form of Morena's motivation. Morena Prudo is a relatively recent character in the series, whose goal is simply to watch the world burn. And accompanying her mission statement is a collage of images designed to sum up Morena's view of the world, containing everything from basic principles of nature to the true depths of human evil. And what's more is that a lot of these images were pretty much taken one for one from real-life human events. And I'm going to say this right now, some of what I am about to say may get this video age restricted or demonetized, and also some of you may find these images genuinely disturbing because, well, that's why Togashi decided to use them. But this collage contains a whole host of Togashi redrawing famous images from the world of photojournalism, including starving children, lynchings, killings, ISIS executions, and this image of a woman being served on a platter, which was inspired by the Instagram account of billionaire Tony Tutuni, who describes himself as a, quote, feminist supporter and motivational tyrant. My pictures will make you hate your life or your nagging wife. An absolutely charming man, I'm sure. But look, in the end, I've made the decision not to show the actual source images that Togashi used to construct his drawings in this video because, well, honestly, it's a bit too messed up. Some of them are legitimately scarring pictures. Like, there's a difference between seeing Togashi's redrawing of it and an actual photo of a lynching happening. So if you do want to see them, you can look them up. They're definitely out there. And it's definitely interesting that Togashi chose to reference real-life events. And if you do see those images, I think it makes Morena's quest a bit more empathizable, because the world does have truly horrific events happening everywhere, from the very core of nature all the way up to the excessive dark desires of the billionaire class. And a lot of what Togashi has been exploring during his career as a mangaka, weirdly in the specific shonen genre, is misanthropy. And I wouldn't necessarily call Togashi himself a misanthrope, but he is more in tune with the dark side of humanity than most of, if not all, other shonen authors. And speaking of shonen, I am retrospectively shocked that Morena's whole collage was even allowed to be published in Weekly Shonen Jump. Because even if these weren't direct replications of real-life events, they're still pretty damn heavy subject matter for an early teen audience. But again, this has been a hallmark of Togashi's work ever since the days of Yu Yu Hakusho, particularly with the Chapter Black videotape, an artifact from the spirit world said to contain thousands of hours of human atrocities committed over millennia. But why is that relevant for Hunter x Hunter? Well, that's because the Hunter x Hunter world also has its own incarnation of the Chapter Black tape. However, in order to truly inspect that, we're going to need to go one layer deeper.